Hi, everybody. I'm here with my partner, Catherine, and our cat, Zoe. And I'm just going to do a very short Feldenkrais movement class. A couple things to remember when you're doing Feldenkrais movement are the movements are very gentle, they're very slow, you take your time, you can rest as much as you want. You don't want to do anything that feels stressful or straining. You definitely wouldn't do anything that hurts. So whatever movements we're doing, you're trying to find the easiest, laziest way to do them. We're thinking mostly about changing our brain's perception of our body. To get started, go ahead and lie down on the floor. You can have something supporting your head if you'd like. You just want to be as comfortable as you can. You can have your legs straight or your knees bent if you like. We usually take a minute or two in the beginning of each class to do a little bit of a body scan just to check in to see where we're at. So to start off, go ahead and close your eyes and begin to feel your contact with the floor. Notice the way that you're breathing. Feel the way that your shoulders are lying on the floor and your spine. Notice the way that the low back is contacting the floor and your hips and legs and arms. Go ahead and let your head roll left and right a couple of times. And just feel the way that your head and neck are rolling on the floor. See if your head likes to roll more comfortably to one side or the other. That's good. And then bring your head back to the middle. Please bend your knees and have your feet flat on the floor. When your feet are flat on the floor, you have your feet about the width of the hips apart. Hips or shoulders, just a comfortable place to have your legs resting. And then very slowly begin to roll your pelvis a little bit from left to right. A tiny bit, just something that's easy. And in the beginning, you can let your legs sway a little bit. Your knees can go left and right. And feel what that's like on your low back, on your spine and your ribs. Sense if it's easier to roll more to one side than the other. Continue rolling your pelvis and see if you could leave your knees pointed towards the ceiling. So your pelvis still continues to roll left and right, but the knees more or less stay pointed towards the ceiling. To help move your pelvis, you could push one foot, like you could push your right foot to roll your pelvis to the left, and you could push your left foot into the floor to roll your pelvis to the right. Try that. Just doing a movement that's very easy and very gentle. And feel how you could help your pelvis roll by using your belly. You can push your belly out a little bit from one side and then relax it and push it out a little bit to the other side. When you push your belly out, your back will arch and it'll help move your pelvis more from one side to the other. Start to let your head and pelvis move together. So when your pelvis rolls to the left, your head rolls to the left. When your pelvis goes to the right, your head goes to the right. See if you could make this an even lazier movement. It can be smaller. You keep trying to find ways to use less and less effort. And then let that go and just pause like that for a moment, resting with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. And now, with your right knee, begin to let your right knee tip out to the right. You'll roll onto the outside edge of your right foot and then come back. Just go a little bit out. Don't go all the way to the end. And repeat that movement, going slowly. You're always going at about Tai Chi speed in Feldenkrais. So your right hip opens up a little bit. You roll onto the outside edge of your right foot and then come back. And keep repeating that movement. And to help your right knee, begin to press your left foot into the floor, push your belly out to the right, and roll your pelvis to the right a little bit, just what's comfortable, and then lower the right hip and bring the knee back up. And repeat that a few times. Let gravity get a hold of the right leg so you don't have to do a lot of work there. Help the right knee go down to the floor by pushing your right foot in to the floor and pushing your belly out to the right, letting your pelvis roll to the right. Make sure your left shoulder stays on the floor and begin to feel how much of your spine is twisting and turning. Starting down at the lumbar spine, Feel into the ribs. Feel how the left ribs get pulled over to the right a little bit. Just keep repeating that. And begin to let your head follow along. So your head will roll to the right as you feel your pelvis rolling to the right, and then everything comes back together. Continuing that movement, begin to let your head roll the opposite way. So your head will roll to the left as your knee is going to the right. So now you're twisting a little bit more into the spine. And just doing what's easy. And one more time. Make sure the left knee stays pointed towards the ceiling. And then sweep your right knee back and take a rest for a moment. In Feldenkrais, we take a lot of rest between each movement segment. And you can rest with your knees bent or your legs long on the floor. After doing those few movements, feel the way that you're lying on the floor now and sense if there's a difference in the way that your back, shoulders, and legs are contacting the ground now. You can feel if the contact is a little bit lighter. You can also notice if one side of your body feels a little bit flatter or more comfortable on the floor because we've been doing an asymmetrical movement. Okay, and please bend your knees again. Have your feet flat on the floor. Now we'll start to do the left side. To start, begin to lower your left knee towards the floor. Press your right foot into the floor. Roll your pelvis to the left. Push your belly out. And then you start to sweep the left knee back and just relax your belly and back. So it's a relaxation that brings the left knee up. And then we'll continue repeating that movement, lowering the left knee, pushing the right foot into the floor. See how the right knee stays pointed towards the ceiling the whole time, and then you'll sweep the knee back. Start to let your head also roll towards your left shoulder. Feel the twisting and turning that starts in the low back and climbs into the ribs. You can feel how the ribs on the right side are now getting pulled over to the left. Your right shoulder stays on the floor. Start to also let your head turn, so your head and pelvis are all turning together. And now begin to alternate. One time you'll lower the right knee and push the left foot into the floor. And then one time you'll lower the left knee and push the right foot into the floor. You're pushing your belly out to help roll the pelvis, and then the belly relaxes. And start to time this movement with your breathing. So when you're inhaling, you'll be rolling to the side and pushing the belly out. And then when you exhale, you soften your stomach and sweep the knee back up. Continue to do everything that you're doing from the neck down and begin to let your head roll the opposite way of your pelvis. So when your pelvis goes to the left, your head will go to the right. And when your head goes to the left, your pelvis will go to the right. Feel if there's any way that you can reduce the effort, let the movement become more lazy. Both shoulders stay heavy on the floor. That's pretty good. Go ahead and take a rest. Stretch out your legs and pause for a moment. Again, as you're resting, feel the way that you're lying on the floor. Roll your head left and right a couple times. Feel if there's any change in quality in the way that your neck is moving. And then bring your head back to the center. Sense again if your shoulders are resting more fully on the floor. You might feel the way that your back and ribs are contacting the ground is a little bit different. Please bend your knees again. Have your feet flat on the floor. Your feet are always about the width of the hips or shoulders apart. This time we'll start with the upper part of the body. So extend your right arm up towards the ceiling and then bend your right elbow. And you're going to take your right hand and put it underneath your left armpit and get a hold of your right shoulder blade. Your left shoulder blade with your right hand. And then with your left hand, you'll bend your left elbow and get a hold of your right shoulder. So each hand is holding a shoulder and the arms are stacked on top of each other. The arms aren't crossed like this, they're one on top of the other. Your knees are going to stay pointed towards the ceiling and you're not going to use your feet yet. Starting with your left hand, begin to pull on your right shoulder a little bit. It's like someone who was pulling on your right shoulder to turn the top of you a little bit over to the left, and then you'll lower the shoulder. Do that 2 more times. You can leave this hand here. A couple times you'll, leave that hand there. You'll pull on the shoulder, on the right shoulder, and then lower it. And feel how you can relax your neck and let your head follow along. Your hips stay relaxed, so you're mostly twisting in the upper part of the body. It can be a tiny movement. Maybe you just go an inch or 2. It doesn't matter. Do a couple more of those and let your head roll the opposite way. So as your shoulders go to the left, your head goes to the right. Make sure you're breathing just comfortably. That looks good. Now start to do the opposite movement. Begin to pull on the left shoulder with your right hand, and your head can roll to the right. You lift the left shoulder off the floor, and then you come back. Every time you lift, you're going to try and soften your ribs a little bit. It's almost like you're sort of folding your chest in half. And then let your head go the opposite way a couple times. So your arms will go to the right, but your head will go to the left, and then you come back. Do that 2 more times. And then start to alternate. 1 time pull on the right shoulder, 1 time pull on the left shoulder. So now your shoulders are rocking, but you're letting your head go the opposite way. Feel if you can soften up more in your collarbones, your ribs, your sternum. Let your head go the same way as the shoulders now 2 more times, so your head follows the direction of the shoulders. So your head will go this way, and then your head will go this way. So you're going the opposite way. So let your head follow the shoulders. Looking good. All right. And now put your arms down. And wait, keep your knees bent because we're not quite done yet. And just a couple times before taking a longer break, go ahead and roll your pelvis left and right like we did in the beginning a couple times. And feel if your pelvis and low back are moving a little bit more easily. That's good. Go ahead and straighten your legs. Take another rest. As you're resting, feel again your contact with the floor. Sense if your spine and ribs and low back and pelvis are resting on the floor more comfortably than before. Or maybe it's the feeling that the floor has gotten a little bit softer. Sense if your breathing has changed. Feel as your chest and belly rise and fall, if they feel a little bit more at ease or harmonious with each other. Feldenkrais classes usually go about 50 minutes to 55 minutes when I teach. Today we're doing a really abbreviated version of a longer Feldenkrais lesson. So we're just going to do 1 more movement. So please bend your knees again. Have your feet flat on the floor, again about the width of your hips apart. Start off with your arms out to the side. So your arms are out at about 90 degrees. And then check to make sure your shoulders are comfortable. So if your arms were too high and it wasn't comfortable on your shoulders, you could bring your arms down a little bit. Before working with the arms, go ahead and roll your pelvis side to side again. And just feel how your pelvis is rolling and your low back. And then do that movement we were doing with the knees earlier. So when your pelvis rolls to the right, you lower your your right knee to the floor, push your belly out, let your back arch a little bit. Your left knee stays pointed towards the ceiling. Then you'll sweep the right knee up and lower the left, push the right foot into the floor, push the belly out, relax your belly as you sweep the other knee up, and alternate like that a couple times just to get the feel for it. You're always expanding your belly out in the direction that you're turning, and then you soften it as you come back through the middle. Let your head follow along too. When your pelvis rolls to the left, your head rolls to the left, and when your pelvis rolls to the right, Your head rolls to the right. That's perfect. Pause in the middle. Now we're going to add in the arms and bring the whole thing together. So to start off, bend your left elbow and start to let your left hand slide across your chest or your belly and slowly going about Tai Chi speed. And we want to eventually get our left hand over to where the right is. So to get your left hand over there, we'll do the same movement with our pelvis. You can lower the right knee, push the belly out, and then pause for a moment like that. So you have both hands on top of each other. Your back's a little bit arched because your belly's expanding and you're also twisting through the ribs. Your left hip is off the floor. And now when you're ready to come back, you'll sweep the right knee up and the left arm just drags. The left arm is now like dead weight and it just drags and flops onto the floor. And now we'll do the other side. Start to reach across yourself with the right hand. Let the right hand slide across your ribs and then onto the floor. Start to lower the left knee. Push the right foot into the floor. Push your belly out so your back is arching and twisting. And let your head roll to look at the floor. You can even lift your head a little bit if you want, if that's comfortable on the neck, to look down at the floor. And then put your head back down. Start to lower your right hip. Sweep the knee up. Let the left arm drag and flop on the floor. And then start to roll over to the right, lowering the right knee, reaching across you with the left hand. If you want, you can lift your head and to look at the floor. It's almost like you're trying to look behind you over the bottom shoulder. Then you'd put your head back down. You'd start to roll back on your back. You'd let the left arm flop on the floor. We're going to repeat this a couple more times, and I'll just add a few more ingredients. Start to lower the left knee. Start to reach across you with the right arm. Push your belly out. Keep the right knee more or less pointed towards the ceiling. This time when you come back, if you want to do something else with the arm and the shoulder, when you roll back onto your back, you can let the right arm drag on the floor over your head. That's only if it feels comfortable on your shoulder to get more of a full range of motion. And then we'll do the other side, lowering the right knee, reaching across you with the left hand. Lifting the head to look over the shoulder underneath you if you want, and then come back. We're almost done. I'm going to add in one more thing. Keep doing everything exactly the same, except you're going to look the opposite direction with your head. So as Catherine's rolling over to the left, she's looking over the top shoulder. So her head is twisting the opposite way that she's reaching. And then you roll back onto your back. You try and make the movement more lazy. It's very complex at this point, but the more complex it gets, you try and make it more lazy, more comfortable. And then do that one more time, reaching across you, looking over the opposite shoulder. And then the next time you come back, you'll lower your hip, bring your arms down by your side, rest your legs, and just pause for a moment. Feel the way that you're lying on the floor now. And sense, after doing the movements that we've done, feel if you're lying on the ground differently than before. Sense if your contact with the floor, the shoulders, ribs, spine, hips, legs, back of your head, if all of you is resting more comfortably on the floor than before. Sense if you feel a little broader across the shoulders. Feel the way that you're breathing. Sense if the breathing feels easier, more full. Roll your head a little bit from left to right. See if the quality in the neck is different than the beginning, if your head's rolling a little bit easier. That's good. Usually the last thing I do in a Feldenkrais class is we take our time and come up to standing to see how our standing and walking is. So take your time, roll onto one of your sides, and you'll slowly come up to standing, and we'll meet you back in standing in a moment. So go ahead and come up to standing. Okay, so once you're standing, let your arms relax, let your shoulders hang over your ribs. Relax your belly, soften your toes, and feel for a moment how you're standing right now. Sense If standing is different, if your sense of balance feels different, if your posture feels a little bit more comfortable, you might feel taller. If you feel like you've got a lot of weight on your toes, you can bring a little bit more weight back on the heels so your toes can be free to wiggle around. And then start to let yourself sway a little bit from side to side, just left and right. It's like you were in a warm body of water, and the current of the water was just taking you a little bit from side to side. And then choose one of your arms and slowly let one of your arms float in front of you and feel how light your arm is. You can wave your arm around a little bit like you were painting. Feel if you're freer in your shoulder, your ribs, the joints in your fingers. You can let your head follow the hand and feel how free everything is. And put that arm down. Keep swaying. Let the other arm travel up. Feel if this arm also feels free and light. You can let your eyes follow your fingers. You can bring your hand in different directions and feel how nicely the shape of your ribs and spine keep moving to follow your hand. And then go ahead and walk around a little bit and just feel how walking is. Sense if walking is different, if your sense of balance is better, if your feet are landing on the floor more softly. All right, that's the end of this lesson. Thanks for joining us.